These Lego-like communities, built for retirees, are marketed as independent, safe and fun. It's an industry worth billions of dollars. They're spruiked as a cheaper option for housing, but as affordable as they appear on the way in. On the way out, they can be a financial disaster.
Living in a retirement village has been fantastic. We have a lot of laughs.
Behind the idyllic facade and marketing jingles lurks a darker underside.
But it's like robbery.
A form of corporatised elder abuse. I can't believe my mother's lost all her life savings.
When Lynette Anderson's mother suffered a series of strokes, it was time to sell the home at a Living Choice retirement village, which had cost her $564,000 in 2015.
How did you feel when you saw that bottom line figure that you're likely to get?
I felt sick. I had to read through it more than once. I got my husband to read through it. I emailed it to my brother and said, can this possibly be right?
Retirement villages charge residents a string of fees when they leave. Some can be so big they can eat up a lifetime of savings.
What will you end up with?
$256, I think, $1,000, that's all.
So it's gone backwards?
It's gone backwards by a long way, yes.
One of the charges is an exit fee paid by residents when they sell. Lynette's mother Ruth is expected to pay an exit fee of $245,000. But there's more. Most contracts also include a refurbishment fee to prepare the property for sale. In Ruth's case, the fee was huge.
$167,000.
That's the cost?
That's what they're going to take out of Mum's money, yes. But it's a scary figure. It's an astronomical figure, actually.
Lynette and her mother were given an exhaustive list of items that needed to be done.
What state was the house in?
One careful lady living there for 9 years. I might have replaced a few things like the door handles in her kitchen. They've gutted the place.
This was despite a condition report completed by Living Choice, which found most of the home was in a reasonable or fair state. New plaster, tiles and carpet. The bathrooms and kitchen were completely overhauled, even door hinges replaced. And more than $1,000 for a final clean, double the price of quotes we received for cleaning. We got vastly cheaper prices for other items.
And apparently I'm getting off lightly because some people have had to pay more.
How would you describe it financially?
A disaster. When you buy a home, you don't expect to lose half your money.
730 can reveal Living Choice is also a builder. It provided the quote and it will be paid to do the renovations on Lynette's mother's home. In a statement, Living Choice told us residents are made aware of the costs when entering and leaving. It said it recommends legal advice. And it said a retirement village is not an investment, it's a lifestyle, and new residents are provided a clean, comfortable property. It said construction costs had increased since COVID, but residents can use their own builders if they wish. I've been looking at the retirement housing sector for almost a decade, investigating companies around the country. We've obtained dozens of contracts covering big and small retirement villages, spoken to residents and their families, staff, experts and lobbyists. And we've found some harrowing stories of financial loss from some of our most vulnerable citizens.
The setup is designed to milk as much out of the people who go in there.
Michael McNamara's sister Helen worked hard all her life helping people as a nun, then an educator in disadvantaged communities.
She's always been a really generous person, and her first priority always seemed to be what somebody else needs.
In 2020, she moved into Torrens Grove Retirement Village in Adelaide, which is owned by Retire Australia. But in 2022, she was diagnosed with dementia and left this year.
We found the contract as we were clearing out her unit and moving belongings and things, and it's the first time I'd actually cited the contract. At first, this thing is a monster. It's about 70 odd pages long.
The contract included an exit fee of 35% after just 3 years. How it's calculated is shown here in the contract. When he got the invoice, it worked out to be almost $130,000.
There was this algebraic formula. My first response was, how does a 70-plus-year-old person make sense of this? Did she make sense of it?
Notes from her GP show Helen was suffering from cognitive decline 2 years before she moved into the village. Helen's place finally sold last month. She ended up with $236,000 from her original $365,000 investment.
Absolutely disgusted and really disappointed for this outcome from Helen's point of view, because she's had to go into an aged care system that costs nearly $500,000 just to get into in a not-for-profit. There's going to be some bridging finance that's got to go on there from her pension. And it's just grossly unfair.
Retire Australia apologised that its explanation of the exit fee didn't meet the expectations of Helen's family. It said it clearly outlines how the fees are calculated in its marketing and sales material. It said Helen's $365,000 ingoing contribution was more than 30% less than the local median house price. It said when she moved into the village, she was articulate and asked questions about the purchase and process. Dr. Tim Kyng isn't surprised. The retired actuary built a calculator with Macquarie University to help retirees compare different retirement village contracts. And what did you find?
The contracts are very complicated. People don't really understand what they're signing up for.
When do the real costs become apparent?
They usually become apparent at the end of the life of the deal, when the person exits from the village.
You've described them previously as a cunningly disguised rip-off.
Yes.
Do you stand by that?
Yes, I do.
Dr. Kyng has studied hundreds of contracts and spoken to many residents and says most of them go backwards financially when they finally sell.
The amount they get back is really minuscule compared to what they put in at the beginning, generally speaking.
Retirement villages are one of the only property types where people lose money. The losses are even starker when we compare them to the median price of a home in the same suburb. It's not just a financial hit. People can literally lose some of their rights with these contracts. Some operators can decide what pets you can have, how long your visitors can stay, and even request medical examinations and evict those deemed to need extra care.
Most people have a wonderful, positive, uplifting experience in a retirement village.
Daniel Gannon is the head of the Retirement Living Council, which is part of the powerful Property Council. He represents owners and operators of retirement villages.
What we know is that compared to people not living in a retirement village, there are some wonderful health and happiness benefits that can be generated. Research now shows that compared to people not living in retirement villages, people can be 41% happier, 15% more physically active.
It's called independent living. That's what the marketing is. Some of the contracts are very restrictive. Does that sound like independent living?
Well, it is independent living because people are looking for a particular lifestyle. They're not purchasing an investment property, they're buying a lifestyle with all sorts of social activities, events and engagements that are keeping people healthier and happier for longer.
Do you think the contracts are simple enough?
We want simpler contracts. For a long time there's been too much confusion, too much complexity in these contracts. They have reduced in size over the last 5 to 7 years. Some operators have reduced their contract sizes by up to 30%. There is still way too much complexity in these contracts.
Because the people we've spoken to, they may be happy while they're living there, but they get a shock when they're leaving. I wanted to show you one contract, which is a member, and it's also signed up to the Code of Conduct. Just have a look at the exit fee. It's an algebraic formula for an exit fee.
Yes.
That doesn't look like a simple contract.
Our advice to prospective residents of retirement villages is always to obtain independent financial and legal advice. We don't want anyone.
Do you think that is acceptable in a contract for anyone?
Like with any big life decision, any big purchase, it is always advisable to get independent advice to make sure that you understand any financial obligations.
So you think we can put algebraic formulas into contracts, and as long as people try and find independent financial advice, that's okay?
As an industry, we want simpler contracts. We don't want consumer-unfriendly contracts.
Do you think that's consumer-friendly?
We don't want things that people can't understand.
Do you think it's consumer-friendly?
That is quite a complex component of that contract, absolutely. And what we are calling for right around the country with every state and territory government is for simpler contracts. We don't want dissatisfied customers. We don't want unhappy people. We don't want confusion at any time of this process. So if there's any way that we can simplify and further simplify contracts to make sure that everybody understands what they're signing up for, that is a circumstance that we want.
Retirement villages have a voluntary code of conduct. It's designed to create high standards among operators.
Only 1/3 of retirement villages in Australia right now are signatories to the code of conduct. That is too low. We want 100%. We want every retirement village to be signatory to that code because that is our commitment to high standards.
Why is it taking so long if it's been in operation for 4.5 years? You're the peak body. What's going wrong?
Look, what I can influence...
Because it's a very weak code, it's voluntary, you haven't got a lot of take-up, and you've got no breaches, and if someone does get breached, there's no financial penalties.
We want to see 100% of villages around Australia
I understand that,
signed up to the Code of Conduct.
But what are you doing to get that?
We are working with operators right across the country to make sure that they understand what our commitment looks like to higher standards and improved and increased professional standards.
Independent federal MP Rebekha Sharkie represents the oldest electorate in South Australia. Her inbox is full of complaints about bullying, punitive fees and restrictive contracts at retirement villages.
Financial aspect of it is a huge price to pay, where people effectively can only buy into it once because you lose, in many cases, up to half of what you've put in a very short period of time. So many people have said to me that they feel very trapped. The contract that they signed was not what they thought it was, and that they feel that they're getting quite an unfair deal but have no way of remedying that.
Do you think the state and federal governments need to step up?
Absolutely, they need to step up. And in many cases, I see the retirement village contracts as a form of corporatised elder abuse.
Last year, she tabled a motion in Parliament calling on the government to recognise retirement villages as a financial product, a move that would bring them under the watch of the corporate regulator ASIC.
You think you're buying a property, but you're not. You're just getting a right to occupy. So that's why I think if we had at least some ASIC protections, if we had the Federal Assistant Treasurer looking at this deeply, the Parliament looking at this deeply, I think we would be able to ensure that we had a fairer deal between the resident and the retirement village corporations.
Colleen Green discovered her mother will be charged fees including an eye-watering 60% exit fee by Tranquil Waters in Queensland.
And the bottom line, she's only going to get about 20% of her money back.
It's left the family in a financial quagmire.
She has my disabled brother living with her and we're stuck. The predicament we're in now is if we sell her place, we actually don't have very much money left over.
Did she have any idea about the contract when she signed?
I don't think so. I didn't understand it. It's not like a normal contract when you buy a house. This was just an absolute minefield.
Her mother paid almost $384,000 to enter in 2013. And how much will she get on the way out?
About $81,000. I was devastated. I just thought, how can this be possible?
It means 89-year-old Joan won't have enough money to pay for a room in aged care.
Which she will now go as a concessional, so the government will have to pay for her. And as I said, we're not sure what will happen with my brother, but we will try and work something out for him.
I feel very like I've been robbed, I suppose. Well, my name is down at a place down the coast. If you've got the money, you can go in any time, but I can't. I've got to wait for them to ring me.
It's very sad that you can get to 89 and have lost your life savings.
What's your reaction to that?
It's pretty galling, really, isn't it? Clearly, this lovely lady that needs to go into aged care has nowhere to go. If that story doesn't make other legislators, state, federal, prick their ears and go, we have a problem here and we need to fix this, I don't know what would. I wish her case was unique in that sense, but I fear it's not.
Tranquil Waters didn't respond to questions. Do you think it's fair they end up with $81,000 on the way out? We've gone through many, many contracts, we've spoken to a lot of people, and we can't find anyone who's financially better off on the way out.
Look, we don't want any circumstances where expectations haven't been met. Certainly we don't
Do you
like
think
to
people
hear
know
about
that?
contract confusion.
Do you think
and
people are
complexity.
aware? Are they told crystal clear that when they go into a retirement village, they're going to be worse off when they come out?
Look, a home in a retirement village is not an investment property. It's not a vehicle to build personal wealth.
Okay, so
it is a very different model.
We both agree with that, but why is it in your literature and in your messages to government about affordable living, you're saying these are affordable because they're 43% cheaper than a similar like house?
There are various financial and contractual options.
But you're not talking about that. You're talking about it's affordable living.
Well, we do talk about it. We certainly talk to governments about it. There's a lot of contract options for residents. Some people prefer to pay more going in and less going out.
We have spoken to a lot of people, residents, auditors, experts, academics, politicians, and they're saying that there are systemic issues with retirement villages and that things need to change so that residents are properly looked after.
Look, there are no systemic issues across this sector. We do know that there are some residents whose expectations have not been met after they've lived in a retirement village. But there is a lot of regulation.
The elderly people are just being sucked in. I think it's very sad that our society lets this happen.
This poor old mum's got nothing. Anyway.
How can people do this to our elderly people?
Governments need to do better. They set up the regulations and the legislation. And the companies are saying, we're playing by the rules. And I really hope that this provokes some really active discussion and some real movement and change in this industry for the betterment of our aged population.